We got a request from a listener to cover a project that was brought to their attention, one I was not aware of, and I decided we're a podcast for the people. That's what we do. And I appreciate the request. I always want to try to do the best I can to cover projects that people are not sure about and may not have been brought to my attention. This is via YouTube. Person's name's Pablo, and he asked to check out the Baked Beans project. I'd never heard of such a thing. And so I'm going to assume I've got the right project. And this goes to one of my issues, but we'll get to that in later. CryptoBakehouse.com points me to what's referred to as the Baked Beans project. So the Binance Smart Chain looks like it launched at the end of March. Says, quote, "We are Baked Beans, a BNB Binance, the token, miner, and a BSC Binance Smart Chain, Bean Chart BCT. We are the Bakehouse, the place to earn passive income in the DeFi space. Our desire is to be the leading BNB miner platform, and with this idea, we have launched BCT with a transaction tax that will be strategically and 100% transparently deposited into the Baked Beans miner for optimal growth of the smart contract mining pool." So the problem that it is trying to solve is around passive rewards around BNB, but it talks about mining, which was slightly intriguing. So I read a little bit deeper. It has taxes. Nobody likes them, but it has taxes. 4% goes to marketing, 3% goes to liquidity, 5% goes to the Baked Beans miner, in addition to manual buybacks and burns from the marketing wallet for special events. There are liquidity tokens, 38%. There's a treasury, 13%. Bean chart, 10%. Marketing wallet, 10%. Vested team tokens. So this is for the devs and people on the team. And the vesting of release, 15%. 4% private sale, 20% staking pools. And as I looked at this, first of all, let me just call to attention a couple of things. And if Pablo's listening, I hope he is, because he'll go to YouTube. The number one thing that stands out to me is it's a unique approach. I got no problem with the uniqueness of the approach. It's different. It stands out in a crowd. I don't know that Baked Beans project is something that's going to move the needle in terms of the mainstream outside the crypto bubble investors as a standout way to market what they're doing. Like if I think of Baked Beans, in the old days, you're talking about a can, usually a steel can. It's got beans in it, and you're sitting it over a fire. Okay, I got you, but nobody's been doing that for years. I'm not sure that I would have picked Baked Beans. I understand why they did. I'm not sure I would have picked it. And then their roadmap has a cartoon version of what I assume must be Mr. Bean. And of course, that takes a demographic that would understand what I just said, because your younger kids don't know what the heck this guy is. Your younger kids probably aren't watching Mr. Bean. So I don't know they're going to make the connection. And even I see it, but I'm not sure that personally makes sense. And I'm talking mainstream people. I'm not talking in the crypto bubble. I'm talking mainstream people. So I understand what they're trying to do. I just don't know that it has the appeal that they think that it does. If I were them and I were going to go this route, I don't know that I would have used any sort of, like Mr. Bean or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not sure I would have done that. I would have just used the generic image of the pot of Boston baked beans that comes from the candy. If I'm honest, because everybody knows that. Everybody knows that candy. Like it's been a mainstay for like nearly a century. Like everybody knows that candy. That's what I would have done myself. It's like nobody knows what the heck. Anyhow, so that's a pet peeve of mine. I'm saying that I'm always a fan of making sure you appeal to the mainstream, because that's where you're going to get the money. That's why I'm so fixated on it. I want to make sure people understand it, in my project, that this is what it is. And if you have depictions or images that people don't connect to based on your target demographic, which to me doesn't look like the younger kids, I don't think it resonates. But the other thing that stands out is inconsistency of image. So let's say that you go with Mr. Bean. That's cool. This looks like it's a hand-drawn Mr. Bean. Whoever did it is a pretty good artist, if it's true. Might have been for some cartoon. I'm not sure. If it's from a cartoon, I'd yank it immediately because you don't want to get sued. But let's say it's hand-drawn. Then you got the team, which I have an issue with because it doesn't show real faces and real names. I think it needs to show real faces and real names, not these generic names and then a link to Telescam. I have a big problem with that. I understand why they're doing it. I don't support it. I want a face of the real person and a name and ideally LinkedIn links. So I know who you are and where you're coming from, especially because the countries that they've got represented here should be safe for them to show their face. You got the UK, you got Puerto Rico, you got Brazil, you got Italy. I don't see why you can't show yourself. All these are openly free countries for the most part. So I want a face, I want a name. What I see is not acceptable. But the artwork they've got on these people is inconsistent. Like there's no consistency in the artwork. So now later, down with some of the other team members who are not linked at all, you've got what looks like a different cartoon of Mr. Bean. It's a totally different thing. Some depiction of a McDonald's something or other. I don't know what that's all about. Then you're back to Mr. Bean. Then you're on some total different something. Then you're on some ape NFT. Like there's no consistency in the design. Like they need a web designer stat who can understand how to build a website to actually appeal to people. The colors are a nightmare. And before I go any further, the reason this all matters is because it all goes to mainstream appeal. You want to make sure that it catches people's eye correctly. This I don't think does. The colors are an absolute nightmare. The imagery is an absolute nightmare. It just does not scream credible. It screams like it's not even that a kid could do it. I'm sure a kid could do it. It's not that. It does not scream mainstream. It screams crypto bubble. That they're making assumptions about the appeal. So I looked a little bit deeper. They call theirs a light paper, not a white paper. That's fine. I took a look at it, and I think it's actually very good, which is ironic given the catastrophe that is the website, but it also has the inconsistency of imagery. There's no consistent flow to it at all. It starts with a very tacky colored cover sheet that makes no sense. And here they're using the pot concept that's nowhere on the website. And I'm not sure where this image, why they have it here in the white paper, not on the website. Then they go to a very technical page on number 2. Then they go into a generic page with what looks like NFTs on page 3. Then they're back to tacky colors on page 4. There's no consistency in the white paper, the aesthetics of the white paper, but the imagery, the information is actually very good. I found one issue. It looks like they haven't touched this since they went live in late March because the contract address is still a generic XOXOXO. And while that's not a major concern because the contract address is on the site, one thing I've always said is that you should be keeping your white paper constantly up to date. It should be your go-to for everything you're doing because you might have made changes. Now I looked at it, doesn't look like they made any changes. Everything looks structurally the same, but it just seems like they at some point never went back to revisit it. And I think that's a problem. And I think they should. So I have a concern with the team section because they're not exposing who they really are. The light paper doesn't look like it's been up to date, and it needs to be up to date. They have an FAQ, which is a separate document. I like this. I like that it's a published document, so they can't make changes that we can't call them out. But the problem, I'll say concern, not problem. The concern is that if somebody wanted to go the FAQ, they're going to be searching for it. And if you trap it in a PDF, you can't easily search for it. This should be an FAQ on the site. You can have the PDF, but I think the FAQ needs to be on the site so we can find this information. I also think that these questions should have been baked into the white paper. Things like contract being immutable, minimum deposits, anti-whales. This is stuff I think should have been in the white paper, in my opinion. It's good information. I'm not criticizing the information. I'm saying that I'm not sure having it as a separate PDF made sense. Like everything's a PDF. You don't do everything as a PDF, just the stuff that makes sense as a PDF. The FAQ, I don't know that it makes sense as a PDF. Then they have a disclaimer that links to another PDF, but it's just the last page of the light paper. There's no reason to have that. It's a waste of time. It's not a problem. It's just a waste of time. It's a waste of your time to do that. I don't know why you would do that. They have an audit. Looks like it's done by a firm called Ethos Audit. I've never heard of Ethos Audit myself. And I looked a little bit deeper into the audit just to understand the kinds of things that they might have called to attention. They did a decent level of explanation about the kinds of things they look for. They're really around the code and execution performance, more so than the functionals that I like to see. The only thing I don't like about this audit, they do a good job summarizing things, but the only thing I don't like really about this audit is the one thing they called out that would have been any kind of higher severity was the usual centralization privilege of the owner. And I ran the contract through marketmove.ai and it agreed. The main issue around it is that the owner can basically do everything. So there's addresses in the code that they can change at will anytime. And maybe that's so they can administer it. Like if they need to change the minor address later, that gives them the ability to do it. I think a better way to handle that would be for them to run their or administer their contract through EverOwn, which is part of the Everrise network. And what it does is it locks the contract temporarily, and then the community can vote to unlock it when the dev or the admin needs to make select changes. That they can't just go in and do it whenever they need to. They need to talk to the community, say, this is what we want to do. We want to take a vote. Are you okay with us unlocking it to make this change for this reason? I think they should consider that. I would not renounce ownership. I would say, no, consider EverOwn, put the contract there, and then build a community around it. Because from what I can tell, this goes to my next point. From what I can tell, they did engage very well with community. Their Reddit site's very well engaged. They're communicating through all forms. They're not forcing people through Telescam. They've got pretty much every single social media you can think of, minus LinkedIn, which bothers me a little bit. But it looks like they're engaged through their various forms. And so to me, I would address that concern of the audit and market move by going on EverOwn so that the contract can be safely locked through the EverOwn ecosystem, but then unlocked to let them do what they need to do, with the wallet administration, if that's what they need to do. So I guess in summary, what I'm saying is I don't see anything that's of major concern other than the contract and them, the owner, and the ability to do things. And it's too new to really understand higher levels of risk beyond that. Its price has been going down ever steadily. I don't know what that's a symptom of. I don't see anything in terms of the holders. The holders don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of whales. There's not a lot of money in the project at this point. It's got a 10 billion circulating, 10 billion total supply, of which almost all of it's circulating. But no one wallet holds more than 4% of supply. So it's not like there's any whales or many whales. Liquidity looks good. Don't see anything wrong with liquidity pools. The taxes are a concern, but they're not crazy high. They're lower than most other projects. It just seems like the price is going down. And of course, we're kind of hitting some bear activities, but I'm seeing a lot of sell activities on this one, especially around today. I'm seeing a lot of sell activities going on, and I don't know what that's a symptom of, so I can't say for sure. But I don't see anything, from what I can tell, fundamentally wrong with it per se. Perhaps it's one where it goes back to what I said earlier. People have a hard time connecting baked beans to what it's doing. It reminds me of the whole pancake swap with the cake token and the syrup liquidity pools and all this garbage. And it's like, why can't we just keep it simple? And maybe that's what it is, that just people aren't connecting the dots. Other than that, I don't see anything necessarily wrong. They're doing a passably good job with social media. I think the light paper is not crap, certainly not crap. It's a decent white paper, just aesthetics. That's the number one thing that stands out with me is aesthetics. The aesthetics are way off. The site hurts my eyes. The colors are horrible. The white paper's colors are inconsistent. Themes are inconsistent. There's no consistency in anything, and that drives me insane. And As far as the people, I want to see photos, ideally a LinkedIn link. I want to see who you are. Put yourself out there. And I like the information they've got. I just think that they really need to hire somebody who can talk to them about web design, marketing, and come up with something. Because like even the logo doesn't correlate to anything about baked beans. Baked beans aren't even halfway mentioned on the site. And I think it sounds like they started with one concept and then they changed to something else. Like if you said the bake house and just left it at that and it's a bake token, that might be a little bit better, but I don't know. Anyhow, that's Baked Beans Project, cryptobakehouse.com. Again, I don't see anything fundamentally wrong data wise, just the white paper needs to be updated. And they, in my opinion, desperately need somebody to help them with aesthetics and web design and web development and UX, user experience. And I'd like to see photos and names, real names, and LinkedIn ideally for the team. Other than that, it seems like a decent something for those that are interested in B&B rewards.